Hello. This is episode 10 of the 10 episode series I have on YouTube. And it is 16 facts about the covert malignant narcissist sociopaths. It happens that this will be actually a 17th fact because I covered the 16 facts and I was trying to make these videos a bit shorter, pardon the noise. I was trying to make the videos shorter in order to allow them to be a bit easier to consume. I did nominally well in that. So anyhow, some of them are shorter, some of them are a lot longer than I imagined they would be, but I was keeping the train of thought, so. Okay. I am qualified to talk about this and share with you because, unfortunately, I have ample, far too much experience with the covert malignant narcissist sociopath. And my life was destroyed by the last one that I will ever allow into my sphere. And the reason he was allowed in is because I still didn't know what the terminology was and the science and the definitions and all of that. I just didn't know and I wasn't prepared. So I wrote a book, and this is the book, Finally Free: My Exodus from the Covert Malignant Narcissist Sociopaths. There were many of them and too many. It started with my parents. They were full spectrum, violent, brutally cruel. Well, they're all pretty much very cruel, but they were brutally cruel, covert malignant narcissist sociopaths. My parents happened to be extreme spectrum examples, so was the last one. And in between my parents and the last one, there were varying versions. There were people who were at different points on the spectrum. Some of them far end spectrum, some of them not so far. The end result is the tremendous catastrophic damage that they did. My parents took from me what I cannot get back. And the last one wasted 4 years of my life. And I won't, So I'm offering my experience to you for those of you who know what this is. If you are currently entangled in a toxic trap with a covert malignant narcissist sociopath, then this is another voice of validation and hopefully something from my experience or something I say or my contribution can help you to extricate yourself from that entanglement. And if you are not entangled and if you have not been entangled, then I welcome you. I invite you to use this as your cautionary tale, as your education, to recognize signs, recognize behaviors, and save yourself. Because it's a horrible, horrible thing to fall into the trap. They trap targets in a web, in their web of deceit. So, this video, I'm going to give you it's actually the 17th fact, because I've already given you 16. So here's number 17. And it is that they operate within this ridiculous idea of perfection. Perfection is a fantasy. I have very high standards. I aim for my very high standards. I work as hard as I do to reach those, but I never, but what I have stepped away from, and I was trapped in the perfection box. I was trapped in the perfection trap, or I was stuck in the perfection trap for a long time, and I was molded this way by my parents, who operated in this way of, now they didn't demand perfection of themselves, because if they had, they hold the noise, sorry for the noise, constant noise in this neighborhood. If my parents had been perfectionists on themselves, then I think things would have been completely different. But they inflicted that demand for perfection on me and tortured me with it and made my life a living hell and twisted my mind into believing that that's a reasonable expectation. And I'm talking about the definition of the word perfection, which is without flaw. Right? Perfection. Something or someone that is entirely absent of any flaw. Any. That's ridiculous. This is not possible. My parents, being the covert malignant narcissists that they were, did not deal with reality. They dealt with fantasy. They did not function with reasonable and rational thinking. They operated on completely irrational, unreasonable methods, thinking, reactions, habits, habituations, and they demanded perfection. So, for example, and I wrote about this in my book, and I have a little section here that's about perfection that I will read to you. One experience, I wrote about it in my book, but there were many, but one was that, and so my parents are both guilty. My father was the more upfront, in-your-face aggressor, and my mother was the enabler. And she was aggressive too, at times. But she also would just kind of follow my father's aggression and enable his aggression. And she was directly guilty in her complicitness. And so one of the things that was demanded of me was that I was no good unless I got straight A+ in school. I'm talking about that that if I didn't get straight A+ in school, if every grade wasn't 100, I was shit. Well, there is a lot of real estate between 100 and shit. A lot. You know, there's 90 to 100. That's A. That's great, right? That's excellence. But no. Anything below a 100, I was shit. This is important to really grasp that level of abuse. So, because I had been warped, twisted into this, I was in school one day and we got some tests back from I don't remember what class it was, and I had a 92 on the test, which was an A-. It's an A. Anyway, was a 92. And I took the test, and I received the test back, and I looked at the grade, and I started crying. I'm in class, and the whole class is there. Everybody's in class. Everybody can see me. And I started crying. And I was crying because I didn't want to go home and have to show this to my father, who would beat me and tell me that I'm a piece of shit because it's a 92. So I'm sitting there crying, and the whole class is mocking me. Now, this is two things were horribly wrong with this that only made this situation so much worse. The class is laughing at me, mocking me. Nobody in the room is showing any empathy. No one in the room steps up and says, this is not right. She should not be crying of this. There's a reason why she's crying over this. We should ask and find out and show some empathy and maybe even try to help her somehow. Something. Not even the teacher stepped up. Even if the students are so disgusting and limited that all they can do is sit there and mock and laugh. And it was audible. Like I was sitting there hearing them laugh at me and mock me. Like, what is she, stupid? Okay, but the teacher didn't even step up. The teacher didn't even step in and examine this and say, this student has worked this hard and she's earned this excellent grade. She's crying over it. From what? From terror of going home and having to face the brutality of someone who will beat her because it's not a 100. This is terrible. This is horrible. This is abuse. This warped my mind. It warped me. And it broke me in ways that I won't get back. I will never get that. That will never get fixed. That it's an incredibly profound, deep pain that I am never free of. And that's the reality of what this is. This is what the covert malignant narcissists do to people. Doesn't matter what age. It certainly is unspeakably damaging if you are started that way as a child, because the damage is so catastrophic and so pervasive. This does not in any way diminish the damage that one would experience as an adult entangled in a toxic trap with such a person. So this is what I wrote about perfection, and then we'll end the video. About perfection. And I put perfection in quotes because it is a fantasy to imagine, right? The concept of perfection as in I can be perfect or something can be, it's a fantasy. It's, good is good enough. Good is good. That's why it's called good. It's really, really important. Really, really important to remember to continuously focus on this. Good is good and good is good because it's called good. It's such a simple thing, but it needs to be, that needs to be hammered home. It needs to be something that we anybody who deals with this, right? I'm a type A personality, so that only makes it worse. It is something that has to be persistently hammered home. Good is good because it's called good. About perfection. Small people taught me, small people as in covert malignant narcissist sociopaths, that, quote, imperfect, end quote, people are, quote, failures and deserve to be rejected. And worse. They taught me that, quote, perfect, quote, people don't fail and they don't get rejected. They taught me that the definition of perfect was no debt, no losses, not made any mistakes, everything worked out, I'm thin as I, quote, should be, I'm smart as I, quote, should be, I'm all of the shoulds. They taught me that I deserved to feel less than because my life had serious problems. They taught me that because I was not perfect, I deserved to be discarded like trash. They taught me that rejection meant I am not worthy of happiness, love, or success. They taught me that rejection meant I had no right or reason to live. They taught me that rejection meant that no was the end of my road. The no represented the entire scope of possibilities. In other words, there were no other possibilities, people, or options beyond their no. I was a failure and unworthy to reap the fruits of my labors. This black and white, all or nothing perspective is something that is central to the construct of the Covert Malignant Narcissist Sociopath, and they will happily trap you in that prison for as long as you don't know how to get yourself out. I hope this is helpful. Please click subscribe and follow. And if you haven't seen the other videos in this series, please have a look. Namaskaram. I answer all messages, so comment if you like.